Good morning, good day, and good evening. I'm, as always, your host, Brody Robertson, and I forgot to bring up that part of the overlay. Ignoring that, today we have the maintainer. This is like you might think there's a random side topic. The timing of this, we'll get into that. With the maintainer of ECWolf on, who's also been involved in ZDoom in the past. The reason why he's here is, I got an email like 7 months ago during the whole ZDoom situation, and I didn't see the email. I followed up, and now you're here. So introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
Hi, I'm Belzat. Real name is Braden Obrzat, but usually just go by my nickname just because the era of the internet that I'm from. So I was the third maintainer of ZDoom along with GraphZal and Randy. And that was started in, what was it, 2007, I believe it was. I should have it somewhere here. Yeah, I started in December of 2007. I was basically a drive-by contributor for a while. Contributed patches regularly enough that in 2010 I was officially promoted to the maintainer. So yeah, I was working alongside Graph, who joined surprisingly only like 2 years before me in 2006. I think ZDoom started in 2005, and then. Shortly after Graph joined is when ZDoom actually switched to using a version control system.
Was everyone just like winging it beforehand?
But beforehand, I mean, it was just Randy, so whenever you would do a
Sure.
release, there would be a zip file with the source code in it, and you just send patches.
Okay.
So yeah, in 2008, I started ECWolf, which is kind of an offshoot of the ZDoom project. Officially, it's a fork of the Wolf4SDL project, but what I did was take some of the ZDoom, I guess you would call it front-end code, and tie it into there, as well as bring in a bunch of the scripting capabilities that ZDoom offered, and present a very similar interface. Some of the code is taken directly, others is new from scratch, but implement the same like scripting formats. And I still work on that to this day. ZDoom was officially terminated by the project leader Randy in 2016, December. I think you said 2017 in the video just because rounding.
Maybe, I don't recall. Yeah, it was a while ago.
But yeah, so after that, I kind of took more of a sideline role. Part of that is due to sort of disagreements with Graph, and part of that was just because I felt that I was more needed for the Wolfenstein 3D side of things, because at least at the time I had the only maintained source fork for Wolfenstein 3D. Other projects I worked on, Xandronum, which is a multiplayer fork of ZDoom, and the server browser for that, Doomseeker, and what else? When I was in college, I made contributions to the ISO C++ standard. So I was partially responsible for the concepts TS and C++ 14, which then got merged into C++ 20. So I have some contributions to GCC as part of the group summer code program. I think that's the main highlights. I've had random side projects here and there, but I think that's pretty much covers the important ones.
Okay. If I take like a weird pause, there's like your audio and video are completely desynced, so I have to just listen and try to work out when you're gonna stop talking. Just I don't know if this is a Discord thing or what's going on here, but I'll try not to cut you off. I do a bad enough job when voice is synced, so.
Yeah, unfortunately, I probably don't know.
Oh, and now resynced. Okay, fine. Whatever. Let's not talk about it anymore. Just don't. If we don't address it, it won't change again. So when I looked up, like, I every time I have someone on who's working on a project, I go and like dig around about the project. When I was looking up ECWolf, generally it was being considered like the best option to go with when you want to go play Wolfenstein. But like, I think a good place to start here is, what is the deal with like all of these different options in both Wolfenstein and with Doom and all of these different source ports? Like, most people probably know that the code was open sourced at some point in history. You probably know the exact year. I don't have it on hand.
I don't have the exact date, but it was 1998 for Doom.
Okay.
Or 97, sorry.
Right. Okay. So from there, it kind of opened up the floodgates for people to do all of these different things. But like, why are there all these different projects? What do people not agree on?
Yeah, I think early on it was just sort of free for all for people to just, because I mean there weren't any, so
Sure.
everybody started working at the same time. So there was a large flurry of source ports early on. And by the way, the term source port was pretty much, I think, coined by the Doom community, because the source code, the original source release for Doom was for the Linux version and not the DOS version. So one of the first things that had to be done was porting the Linux Doom source back to DOS, and so hence the term source port. One second.
Oh, it did seem to get out. Okay.
Yeah. So then in the early days of Doom source ports, there was kind of more of an emphasis on feature development. A lot of it was trying to backport features from the newer games, such as Quake, back into Doom. And I think that pretty much dominated the scene, and until a source port called Chocolate Doom came about. Chocolate Doom's thing is that it is like one-for-one bug compatible with the DOS version. So it kind of creates a clean code base that you can build additional things onto, but also very popular just for the purists to use as their main port as well.
Right. Okay.
So there's a whole bunch of offshoots on that. I think the three main branches of things are, of course, the ZDoom family, the Boom family, or probably it's more commonly known as now today the PR Boom family, and then Chocolate Doom.
Okay.
There are a bunch of others. A lot of them are, a lot of the other ones died. But a lot of the other ones are kind of not super popular at the moment. I guess honorable mention to Edge, which was once a very popular port and then kind of disappeared for a while, and then a couple of teams have revived it. So I think they're doing decently well, although I haven't really heard too many people using it as their main.
So it's kind of a lot of people just sort of, I guess, playing around with the code base, and I guess it's probably the same. It's probably the same with this as it is with anything else, right? There's a lot of not invented here syndrome, where it's like, yes, there's this other version that maybe does everything I want, but I didn't do it, so I want to do it.
I don't really think it's so much not invented here syndrome, although there is certainly a bit of that that has gone on as time went on. Early on, I think there was a lot of just people like taking ideas from one and implementing it in their own projects. And like the early period only lasted probably until about 2003, and then ZDoom became pretty much the dominant port. And even today, I would say that ZDoom is probably the most popular port, second to the official port from Bethesda. As a result, there's sort of been a faction that built in the community that's like, anything that ZDoom does, we want to do the opposite. I think that's a tale as old as time when it comes to this kind of stuff. I think it's getting better now, and I don't know if any of that has to do with just the tensions with the way that Graph rub people the wrong way in the community.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, so we can get... my understanding is there's like a very long history there. And even as someone kind of outside of that, just going and looking at some of the stuff that's happened throughout history, like there's the example that people bring up of the mod competition from whatever year it was, where someone was building a mod that relied on glitches in a specific version, and it didn't work in the project he was working on, so there was like a whole mess with that. But I'm sure there's so much more you can speak on.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I think the general public perception of him and perception that developers have had working with him are somewhat disjoint. Because I think the general public, what they mostly know is like they want a feature added to the port, and so they put up their feature suggestion out, and Graf is the kind of person who isn't afraid to just tell people no.
Right.
Which is actually a pretty admirable skill, because oftentimes people tend to try to be a little too polite, and things just sort of disappear off into the background. The problem is, I think he would like not give any exposition on why it's a no.
Right.
So over time, he just sort of got this reputation of, oh, I'm going to suggest anything, and he's just going to come in and say no, and that's the end of it. But the reality is, I think most of the time when he did that, there were either technical reasons, or it's one of those things where none of the maintainers on the project were going to work on it in any foreseeable future. So what's the point in keeping the ticket open if it's just going to rot there? And if somebody is actually interested in submitting code, they're going to do it whether or not the ticket's there. So,
right.
On the developer side of things, the problem mostly centered around if there was something that he was not interested in. So the most notable example is one person that joined the team and had to focus on multiplayer improvements in there. Graf is a big single player only type of person. ZDoom has always had multiplayer support, and I mean, we never had any. There's never been any thought that it would be removed, especially as long as somebody was maintaining it. But something definitely went down. I don't know all the specific details, but I think Graf was changing something that kept breaking the multiplayer side of things, and then I assume he told the developer that he didn't care that things were breaking, and so the guy left the project. And yeah, there are a couple of people that joined the project and went, and every time it was because of disagreements between Graf and them. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, generally speaking, the ZDoom project has been very open to whatever you're interested in working on, submit patches for it, and yeah, we're open to pretty much taking whatever, as long as it wasn't because the ZDoom project intended to maintain backward compatibility with mods. So like if we looked at something and we're like, yeah, this is probably going to be a problem down the road, we would reject it for that, things like that.
Oh, this desync is gonna be a nightmare. God damn it. So anyway, moving on from that. Basically, a lot of the issue kind of came down to not really wanting to, I guess, not wanting to like document why things weren't going to happen. It was like, and in some cases, I can imagine he probably had answered the question somewhere, but then didn't want to answer it again, and because it's like, oh, I already answered it over here, just go and find the thing I already said at some point.
Yeah, quite often. And I think other times just generally just not wanting to do the exposition part.
Sure.
Which is fine in some senses, but yeah, I mean, it does sort of build up a reputation when you do it that way.
Right. Yeah, I can definitely understand that. But I don't know, like, you've had first-hand experience there. Like, what is what was your general sort of perception there? Like, was it fine, sort of managing working with him? Like, what was your personal experience with that?
Yeah. So yeah, the early days of ZDoom, like when I first joined, there was basically no coordination at all. We didn't even have a developer forum or anything like that. There's no IRC channel or anything. So I just started submitting patches. Graph actually blindly rejected my initial patch. And then I did some exposition that was just like, actually this the feature is sort of isolated to its own little module. So even if down the road there's issues, we can just sort of create a new thing and it just can live off on its own. And then after that explanation, he merged the patch. And then, well, like I said, a couple years later, I was given the keys to the repository, and at that point, I was free to work on whatever I want, commit directly without any review or anything like that. And yeah, I mean, surprisingly for how little coordination that there was going on, the ZDoom project held together pretty well, and for the most part, was stable. I mean, it is kind of funny looking at particular ZDoom versions in hindsight, because as I mentioned, the Zandronum project was forked off of it, and whenever we would do a sync to a particular time in ZDoom history, and then the Zandronum project would stay on that version for a while. And then it's like we'd find all these bugs that were fixed in later versions. It's like, I don't remember this version being that buggy before. But yeah, so
I
yeah,
guess when
so
you have more
the
time to look at it, it's like you start spotting a lot of things that you would never have found in the normal sort of time frame.
so eventually we did get a developer forum, which included the three of us plus any like drive-by contributors and stuff that for discussing things that did not need to be discussed in front of the peanut gallery, because you know sometimes you toss out an idea and then all of a sudden it's blowing up. Is like, how dare they even think about removing this feature or whatever? And it's like, you know, don't want to deal with that. So that's mostly what would be discussed in there. Let's see, in 2013 is when the project switched to Git, and that is pretty much what opened the floodgates to contributors. Before that, we were mostly the three-person team and some occasional drive-bys. After that, we quickly expanded to 6 or 7, depending on the specific time that you count. And after 2016, a bunch more people joined, including the current team that's maintaining ZDoom.
So in those very early days, there just wasn't any sort of really management of the project. It was kind of just
correct. Yeah.
And when you have like three people, you really don't need that much in the way of management. Yeah, it makes things more convenient to have source control, absolutely, and you should have source control. But when everyone knows each other, you can kind of get away with not really formalizing anything.
Yeah, and I mean, it is interesting in the sense that the three of us kind of all had the same general idea on what ZDoom is supposed to be, even though there was not really any document that said this is what it's supposed to be. And the way I would describe that is ZDoom was always a player-focused port, so adding features that improve the quality of life, which it's kind of a thing that people get confused, because, of course, we had all these modding features to allow very fancy mods and turning Doom into completely new games. But there would be features like people would want to disable the ability to do like save states, or disable the auto map, and and those were always hard no's from us, because it's like, if that's the experience that the player wants, that's what they'll get. If they don't want to cheat, they can just not press the button to cheat.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't force it on the player. You just give the players who want to use it the option to use it.
Yeah, and yeah, like one of the things you'll see thrown around in public is that ZDoom is sometimes described as a new engine that happens to play Doom, whereas the internal development team views it as it still is at the core of the Doom engine. I think the way I would sort of describe it is when we make enhancements, the algorithms are mathematically the same as what the original Doom engine did, but because the way computer precision works, sometimes things don't exactly calculate exactly the same, and so that's why ZDoom doesn't support like the demos that play when you start up the game.
So there is some. I guess this is also part of the reason why there's so many different options. There's some sort of debate about what is the most what is the correct way to play it. Do you want a pure experience? Do you want a nice fluid? Like what exactly are you looking for from this?
Right. Yeah, and the goal with ZDoom was that if you take someone like yourself who isn't necessarily playing Doom every single day, that you'll start it up, you'll look at it, you'll go, this seems to play exactly like vanilla Doom as far as I'm concerned. But obviously the competitive people will notice things pretty quickly. Like one of the probably more controversial changes is the change in the random number generator. So Doom had a fixed table of 256 values, and ZDoom changed that to a proper pseudo random number generator with Mersenne twister implementation. The problem with that is the Doom random number generator is weighted in such a way that like the super shotgun actually does more damage in vanilla Doom than it does in ZDoom.
Right.
And conversely, like the BFG 9000, the final boss in the first game, you can literally beat by just walking up to it and firing one shot, whereas it takes 2 shots in vanilla Doom because the way that the random generator rolls just sort of come out.
Okay. If we're getting into random number generation, we have really delved into the weeds of what makes it a good version of the game.
Right. Yeah, like I said, and like you'll go on like the Doom wiki and there'll be a comparison of source ports and it'll say like vanilla accuracy and ZDoom will be marked low, and like there's some tension on that description. I personally think it's fine because it's like, yeah, so based on the criteria that it's set forth, like yeah, ZDoom is low accuracy port, but in this case, low is still a pretty high bar as far as accuracy is concerned.
Right, okay. Okay. So, let me see. 1 second. So you have these like, where is it? There it is. So you have like the classic Doom games you can buy on Steam as well. And you can do the same thing with Wolfenstein. If you were to just play what you have there, how does that experience differ from like what you're going to get in, some of these like more popular source ports like, GZ Doom and things like that now?
So the out of the box port, since id Software has gone back for Doom at least, as well as Quake and Quake 2, and done updated ports. Out of the box, there's probably not a huge difference. The main thing you'll notice is like free look and jumping support, which is basically cheating in those games. In hindsight, we probably would have had those disabled by default. But again, backward compatibility, there's years and years of mods that expect that jumping in free look work. And so, yeah, we're not going to just change something that breaks a bunch of stuff. And again, for the most part, like, yeah, when you're playing the vanilla game, some people like to have free look, even though it allows sequence breaking something, just because it feels more natural than to play. And
right.
You kind of have to go out of your way to do a sequence break with it. with jumping is kind of a different story. I think that's the one that we definitely would have disabled if we were to do it all over again. But
so, what was it that sort of got you interested in working on this in the first place?
So I was doing Doom modding for many years prior to getting involved. The mod that I was working on is called Jurassic Rift, and the project leader of that wanted to change the status bar to be more of what is seen in Heretic, where you have an inventory system laid out, and there wasn't any way to really change it except for doing some weird hack with level scripting that had some limitations. And so I set out to, at first it was just a simple configuration to say, instead of using the Doom status bar, use the one from Heretic. And in hindsight, I probably should have designed something a little bit more complete at first, because this simple script sort of organically grew into probably the most horrendous scripting language that was ever devised. And it's kind of amazing that. So one of the things that ZDoom has done really well is being very easy for people to get into as far as modding. And so there's a lot of people that don't know any programming that will get into doing programming-like things with ZDoom with very little effort. And so one of the ways that that's accomplished is that there's just a whole bunch of domain-specific languages that do one thing very well. And people that are seasoned programmers consider that a fault, because it's like, why can't you just have one thing that can do everything?
What's like a good example that I can like show of like a reference what the language looks like? Like,
the best example would be the Decorate language.
Decorate. Let's see if we can find it. Decorate tutorial. Yeah, here we go.
So, I mean, it's a pretty simple language. You start with an actor keyword, and you give it a name. Then there's a bunch of properties. Most of the properties are self-explanatory. Some of them probably have some arcane names because of historical reasons. And then there's the animation table. And yeah, I mean, for basic things, the animation table doesn't look particularly scary, but it's interesting because you end up basically programming an assembly language, but this is a language that is targeted toward people that don't know how to program. But they successfully managed to do it. In recent years, ZDoom has changed to a language called ZScript, which has included imperative programming on top of that. So things look a little bit more normal now, just a custom C-like language.
Let me see. Create. Yeah, here we go. Creating new projectiles. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, I see.
And I guess going back to the project leadership discussion a little bit, during the time that the project was called ZDoom, one of the things that was like a no-touch from Randy, the main project leader, was ZScript. That was supposed to be his personal project, and it's like we could do anything we want as long as we didn't do that. And eventually it got to the point where Randy was absent for long periods of time, and it got to the point where this thing not getting done was becoming a hindrance. And so Graf basically decided he was just going to work on ZDoom going forwards, and if something happened with ZDoom, then we'll figure out what to do then. So then Graf went and implemented ZScript himself. And that's when I think Randy admitted that she wasn't going to have enough time to commit to it, so she terminated the project and just handed it over to Graf. And so that's pretty much the story that went on there.
So that early changeover was fairly, how do you say it? Like fairly calm. It's like, I just don't have time for this right now. you take it over. You're working on this more.
Yeah, it is. You probably read a little bit something into the fact that he didn't just hand over the ZDoom name. The project
That's
continues
fair.
with GZDoom.
Okay.
But I don't know if there were any discussions between her and Graf at the time or what. I pretty much found out the same time everybody else was going there. Again, going back to not being a whole lot of coordination in the project.
At this point, who actually like runs the whole like ZDoom domain? Because it's like you've got ZDoom now links out to like a bunch of other things. It's kind of like a meta project, and all of the community around ZDoom, it's just about these other forks of it.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure who owns the zdoom.org domain, but yeah, when Randy discontinued the ZDoom project, the intention was to sort of turn the zdoom.org site into sort of an umbrella project for the descendants of ZDoom. I think that sort of de facto just turned into the GZDoom website, which kind of presented a situation when UZDoom happened, and then it's like, so what do we do at the site? And I'm thinking it was supposed to be an umbrella project, so there's really no problem with presenting both of them there at the same time. But obviously, ECWolf would technically be under that umbrella, but I always had my own website, so there was never really any pressure to move it to zdoom.org.
So I guess, yeah, how did ECWolf get started then? How did that all come about?
Yeah, so ECWolf was literally started because Wolfenstein 3D did not have volume controls, and I wanted to turn down. I wanted to independently control the sound effect volume from the music volume, and one thing led to another, and eventually I was maintaining a whole source point. So yeah, ECWolf forked from Wolf4SDL, and if that project didn't exist, I don't think ECWolf would have, even though these days I know enough assembly that I probably could have worked through it. Yeah, the history of Wolfenstein 3D source ports is a bit more of a mess. So I think the source code was released around the same time the Doom source code was released. But I don't know off the top of my head when.
Release date. Let's see if we can find out. July. Wait. July 21st, 1995. No, this initial. Wait,
That's possible.
Yeah. Source code for the original. Yeah, this. I think that's right. July 21st, 1995. That's what I'm seeing. Someone correct me if I'm
wrong. And yeah, so a handful of source ports came out of that, but all of them rewrote the renderer from scratch. And I think all of them were OpenGL accelerated. Now, the interesting problem with that is Wolfenstein 3D was programmed in such a way that what the renderer showed fed back into the gameplay logic. So like you couldn't pick up an item unless you were looking at it.
Right. Okay.
And so now if you change the renderer, you don't have that feedback anymore. And so that creates a whole bunch of bugs in the game. And so a lot of those early source ports were very buggy, even beyond weird issues. Like I know one of them, there would be outlines around every single graphic. And I'm sure that was just some quirk of the drivers because early video drivers were not very stable. But and I think it was 2006 or somewhere around there. A guy named under the alias Ripper, real name is Mortis Kroll, started a project called Wolf4GW, which ported the 16-bit code base to 32-bit DOS, and then he took that project and turned it into Wolf4SDL. And so that got rid of the assembly code, but retained the software renderer and still worked generally the same way. The Wolf4SDL project did do enhancements, so it did get rid of the you need to look at an item in order to pick it up. And some of the renderer feedback stuff was removed, but not all of it.
Is that one of those things, because we talked about random number generation, is that one of those things that people argue about whether or not that's a good thing? Or did everyone just kind of, did everyone give up on complaining about that one?
The Wolfenstein 3D community hasn't had as much choice in source port, so I don't think there has been quite as much argument. With that said, with ECWolf coming into the picture and basically upending pretty much everything that community knew. So the Wolfenstein 3D community, when I showed up on the scene, was very tiny. There were basically two forums, the Die Hard Wolfers forum and Wolf 3D Haven. And both of them were basically small town mentality. So then you have me showing up with this source port that implements basic things like WASD controls and making Wolfenstein 3D accessible to the masses. And I basically face vehement rejection because I'm impeding on, at least my impression is, my rejection comes mainly from imposing on the small town. With all these people that are now coming in and asking why don't their mods work with my source port, even though, yeah. So the Wolfenstein 3D modding community was mostly based around direct hacking on the source code itself. So every single mod is its own source port in a way.
Oh god. Okay, right. So there kind of was a lot of source ports. It's just not in the same sense as what you had with Doom.
Right. They weren't interchangeable. Whereas with Doom, you can, to a certain extent, play a large set of mods with any source port. So that's my train of thought.
Modding, small town, rejection, changing the game. You haven't got it? You lost it?
I don't remember what the question was. Was it about choice and?
Oh, it was. I don't even remember exactly what the question was at this point. I think it was just kind of in general, like sort of the beginnings of ECWolf and what was going on in Wolfenstein community at the time.
And then you asked something about if there was as much debate.
Oh yes, I brought up the random feature complaints. Yeah.
So the Wolfenstein 3D community does sort of still have a diehard Wolf 4 STL fan base, even though the source port has been unmaintained for years. There's been a couple forks that have come off of it and all of them tried to keep the same name. So it ended up being really confusing to figure out the history of all of that because there's like 3 different projects called Wolf for STL. I did convince one of them to finally rename their project to ZDoom. So that's at least solved. But yeah, none of them were blessed by the original developers, to the best of my knowledge, anyways. Because when ECWolf started, I was initially contributing back anything that wasn't like major gameplay changes. I managed to get a couple patches, I think, into the Wolf 4 STL code base before the developer just disappeared. I was sending patches and just didn't get a response anymore. And so at that point, Wolf 4 STL was the only maintained Wolf 3 source port, and then ECWolf took over as the only maintained one. Now there's, I think, 4. Reflection HLE, which is essentially a chocolate Doom equivalent. And I actually have made contributions to that because, to me, the main purpose of that kind of a port is for reference purposes. So if there's some weird behavior, some of the behavior is like a memory corruption happens, and it happens in a predictable way. So certain mods can like depend on that memory corruption to work. And so what's handy about ports like Chocolate Doom and whatnot is they'll capture that behavior and make it defined behavior instead of crashing, because that's what a modern operating system would do in the same situation. Yeah, so The other one, as far as I know, one of the developers of the Wolf for STL forks is still going. And as far as I know, ZDoom is still going. And then, yeah, there's ECWolf. And I think that's the four that are still active that I'm aware of.
Maybe this gets into like even pre-source port stuff, but why do you think there is such a big distinction with Doom and Wolfenstein here, where Doom has so much going on, but Wolfenstein even now is kind of still just a few projects here and there?
The main thing would be the assembly code. Like I said, that was a big hold up for a lot of the early projects where they just got really buggy because the way that the original code was made. The Doom source code, however, was entirely C, or I know there was assembly code in there, but I think there were C fallbacks, so you could just compile it out of the box on whatever. And so that made it much more accessible to develop for. The other thing is Wolfenstein 3D is a little bit of an acquired taste, and that it is way more primitive than Doom, and that shows. I think some people would have a better opinion of the game if they stopped after episode 3 instead of playing all 60 levels at once.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize that episode 4 through 6 is actually an expansion pack. And so...
Okay.
So yeah, you end up playing through this really long game where pretty much the entire thing is the same thing over and over again, and I think that burns out people. So I think there's just less interest in the game overall. But yeah, the flip side of that is since it was a primitive game, there's a lot of things that you can do to expand, and to that end, like ECWolf kind of gives more of a Rise of the Triad vibe when you actually start modding it.
Rise of the Triad. Why does that name ring a bell? Oh, yes. Okay, that's why.
Rise of the Triad did use the Wolfenstein 3D engine, so far down the road, my plan is for ECWolf to have support for that. I guess I should mention ZDoom and we'll just say ZDoom was one of the early ports that actually merged all of the Doom engine games into a single engine. So that allowed mod authors to take stuff from one game into the other, and yeah, that unlocked a lot of power. A lot of the reason why the early ports didn't do the same was because a lot of the early ones used the GPL license, whereas ZDoom used the original Doom source release license originally. And so that gave us a bit more flexibility at the cost of the usual things that you expect with the GPL freedoms. Although these days it's kind of a dubious benefit now that GZDoom has been used for probably like 30 some odd commercial games on Steam. There end up being a question like, can these games come to consoles? And the answer is no, because of the GPL. And if I could call out Valve for 1 second, they really need to release their Steamworks API under a license that is permittable through the GPL, so we can stop doing these insane workarounds.
Workarounds in what way?
So there are Steamworks API is behind a NDA. However, anybody can go to the Steam partner website and sign up and then get a copy of it. So why is there an NDA there? I don't know. So that means that it's GPL incompatible because you can't introduce any further restrictions. And the way that games get around that is, one, you could have a separate process and then communicates through a socket in order to bypass the GPL requirements. Some other games just want to take the spirit of the GPL into account. Nobody's going to complain if you just are like, hey, there's just one thing. The implementation on how to do this is very obvious, and you can get a copy of it. I just can't show you it because the NDA. And then there's also a thing, someone I think re-implemented the API is like Open Steamworks. So like you could implement it and just be like, hey, technically I'm linking against that, but actually I'm not. And then in the case of, ECWolf is the official port for the Super 3D Noah's Ark re-release on Steam and GOG. And since ECWolf is dual licensed under both the original source license and the GPL, and one before Ripper disappeared. Wolfenstein SDL was originally only nominally under the original source license. I asked Ripper if his intention was that it would be available under any license that id Software licensed it under, and he said, yeah. So then I submitted a patch to add the GPL compile option to it. And so because Wisdom3 had a license with id Software, I'm not technically beholden to the GPL in that case, but we still follow the spirit because why not release the source code? So it's up on the ECWolf GitHub.
So you kind of brushed over it there. For anyone who's unaware, can you just briefly explain Super 3D Noah's Ark?
Yeah, so in 1994 and 1995, a company called Wisdom3, also known as Color Dreams, I think, licensed the Wolfenstein 3D engine from id Software, and they were doing Christian Bible games, primarily for the Nintendo consoles, unofficially, of course, and so one of the games they put out was a version of, you would call it a first-person shooter, even though that term kind of feels wrong in this context.
Yeah.
Called Super 3D Noah's Ark, using the Wolfenstein 3D engine, specifically the Super Nintendo version. The DOS version came out later and kind of backported some of the features from the Super Nintendo code back into the DOS code base. Yeah, there's a little bit of a misconception going on that it was done out of some sort of spite for Nintendo forcing it to censor the Super Nintendo version of Wolfenstein 3D. As far as Wisdom3 is concerned, that is false. They licensed it just like everybody else. Whether id Software felt it was funny because of that reason specifically, I can't comment. But yeah.
If you are curious about seeing any other Wisdom3 games, AVGN like 12 years ago did a Bible Games episode on that. So go and check some of that out if you want to.
The one thing I'll say on that, he did say that like the game was just a reskin of Wolfenstein 3D, but Super 3D Noah's Ark does have 30 unique levels that were designed by the Wisdom3 team, so it actually is a new game. But yeah, it's using the same code. So.
I think it's just cool that someone made this like that. It's kind of dumb. It's like a weird thing. But it's cool and fun that someone just went and made this.
And Doom had one of those as well in the form of Chex Quest that was distributed in cereal boxes back in the day.
It is cool that like there were so many things just built off of these engines back at that time. And since then, there have been so many of these like full conversion mods where people have made these entirely new games based. I think it's especially cool when someone does it now. They want to go back and rather than, going and making a game in, a modern engine like a Godot or something like that, they go and say, you know what? I'm not going to try to replicate that style. I'm just going to go all in and actually just build something off of that old code.
Yeah, in the case of Doom, a lot of it is those are people that just were modding for Doom and eventually worked up to making a full from scratch game. So, I mean, you already had the skill set, so why wouldn't you? And the license allows you to release things commercially. And so, yeah, that's pretty much how those come about.
It is really cool. I think it's super cool that the code was even released in the first place. Like, that's just not really a thing that basically anyone does. And by doing so, obviously, it gave them a lot of, like, I could imagine at the time there were probably articles that came out like, wow, look, this is so cool. They released the source code for their game. But it's just cool that they sort of opened that opportunity up, because none of this would have been possible if they didn't go and say, okay, have fun with it.
Yeah, and I mean, even the implications go beyond just the have fun with it aspect.
Preserve it.
Like, as I mentioned, there's like 30 some odd games that are using it commercially. So I think and like even outside of Doom, I think like I personally owe my career to having worked on ZDoom. So yeah, just the widespread spread impact that just a little gesture like that can have is pretty amazing.
So you've talked a couple of times about ECWolf sort of pulling in a lot of things from ZDoom. Like, what is that? Like, what has been brought over there, and like, what does that sort of imply for what ECWolf is?
So as I mentioned, a lot of it is the front end stuff. So it mostly just has a generally same feel that ZDoom had, at least as of whenever I last synced with the code base, which was quite a while ago at this point. But in terms of like the scripting stuff, it's mostly just familiarity. So someone can take their skills that they developed for modding for ZDoom, and they instantly transfer over to ECWolf, because while the engines aren't the same internally, they still generally had the same design about them. So I was able to take some liberties in how the scripts worked for Doom and transfer them over to the Wolfenstein 3D engine, and there's no real loss in like accuracy in doing that.
So, with maybe this is a dumb question, but what is there even to do on a project like this? Because obviously the games themselves are ancient games, and you've worked on ECWolf for so long now. Like, is the project not just done? Like, what is there still to do?
Yeah, so for ECWolf, there's still a ton left to do. After I completed college and went out into the real world, I haven't had quite as much time to chew through my infinite backlog of things to do. But yeah, so right now ECWolf supports Wolfenstein 3D, Spear of Destiny, Super 3D Noah's Ark, and then Wolfstone 3D and Wheat Hands from the there was an arcade cabinet that was included inside of the Wolfenstein 2 game that had an alternate reality version of Wolfenstein 3D where you play as a German against the Americans. And so you could extract that from the game, and it turns out they basically implemented the original Wolf 3D engine in those games. So
well, that's actually sick. I love that.
It's the same game data format, so when you extract them, it actually can just run in ECWolf. There were a couple things that I had to add to support those, but it was very minor. But yeah, obviously those are the games that are very similar to each other. I have the Mac version of Wolfenstein 3D like half implemented, so that needs to be finished. But then there's all the other games that use the Wolfenstein 3D engine that I need to get around to implementing, which include Blakestone, Corridor 7, Operation Body Count, and Rise of the Triad.
So the goal is to kind of just support everything.
Yep, and that's the same thing that ZDoom did well before.
I guess how much, well, what needs to kind of change in the code base to happen? Like, why do the other games not just work? What do they do differently that causes issues?
Yeah, so how licensing the Wolfenstein 3D engine would work is they would basically hand you the source code to Wolfenstein 3D and the editing tools. Now, the game data only includes like the graphics and the story text, stuff like that. If you want to like change the behavior of how the monsters work, those all have to be done in C. And so all these games have different game logic that needs to be implemented. Now, it still uses the same general framework, so it should all piece into the same like scripting language that I have, and but all that logic needs to be re-implemented into the engine. Now, I did play a role in getting the Blzut3 source code released. I want to say that would have been around 2014. There is a small problem in that Blzut3 is GPL, whereas ECWolf is dual licensed, as I previously mentioned. So I can't necessarily just take code from it. But what I mostly need is like the high level things and the animation tables, which I don't think necessarily fall under copyright in that sense once they're translated into another scripting language. So that should be fine. Maybe one day ECWolf will have to drop the non-GPL license option, but today's not that day. So,
I guess. Do you still enjoy doing what you're doing? Like, you've done this for so long now. It's like, what you got into initially because you wanted to add a basic feature, and then it expanded out from there, right? So
yeah,
you never had these initial goals to like be the guy who basically does Wolfenstein 3D, but now that's kind of what the project has become.
yeah. Yeah, so far I haven't really had burnout in the literal sense. I think certainly the pace that things have been developed would suggest that I do, but there's and more behind the scenes stuff that have caused that more than necessarily I don't want to work on the project.
Right.
But yeah, the thing that really keeps me going is just seeing people being enabled to create things, and like seeing people release games on Steam and building their careers off of things is actually very rewarding to me.
Sorry, why is that? Okay. So you also wanted to talk a bit about, which is very completely side tangent here. You also wanted to talk about like Linux package distribution, Linux software packaging. So I guess I don't really know where you wanted to go with that, but I guess how did you start using Linux? I guess we can start from there.
Yeah, so I started using Linux before 2007 in servers. May have used Red Hat Linux at one point, and then Windows when that came out. My dad got a copy of that, so that was probably my first Linux experience that I remember. But taking it actually serious, there was a time where Mandriva Linux was popular, and I was running a home server off of that. But in terms of desktop usage, in 2007, I was informed about Ubuntu. Sort of tried it on and off for a little bit there, but then committed to going to Linux full time in 2008 with the release of Ubuntu 8.04, and silly me decided to pick the KDE4 remix option. So I got the full force of all the bugs that came out of that, and surprisingly, I'm still a KDE user to this day. So, I mean,
things have improved
bad,
a lot since KDE4, quite a bit.
Yeah, and in those days, it's like, yeah, you pretty much had to install the PPA for the latest KDE to even have a usable system. But yeah, so yeah, I got involved with ZDoom and Zandronum. Zandronum, at the time known as Skulltag.
Oh, is that why I kept? Okay, I looked up some stuff about. Okay, that makes sense now.
Yeah. I guess a quick tangent on that. The Skulltag Zandronum fork was a very similar thing to the ZDoom, UZDoom happenings. The original developer, Carnival, real name Brad Carney, he went off. Well, first thing that happened was I think Skulltag may have been like his first programming project, and as a result, whenever there would be a new major version, it would be completely littered with bugs to the point where it basically usable. And at the release of, I think it was version 0.97b, the amount of bugs was so overwhelming that he quit the project.
Wait, I'm on the wiki page for Skulltag. One of the links here is controversy of 0.97b.
And after that, a developer using the pseudonym Torsamaho, real name is Benjamin, I forget his last name, came onto the project and brought a very don't even know how to say that word. Very conservative approach to progressing the project, and so he was able to continuously get it more and more stable. And at that point, it was still closed source, and a couple people, including myself, joined the project. And because it was closed source, we had to release Linux binaries in binary form. And so that was basically our first experience. Originally, we went down the usual first advice you hear is, oh, you got to build binaries for every single distribution that's out there. So the first release that we did for Linux, I think we supported like 3 or 4 different distros and had different binaries for each one. And then we realized that the Ubuntu binary basically worked on every single one of them. So we just eventually just stopped building a bunch of them and just only supported one. From there, I think it was 2012, I decided to, for my own convenience and obviously the convenience of everyone else to provide auto updates, that I would essentially start my own PPA. Obviously not actually a PPA because I host it myself instead of through Ubuntu's infrastructure. And so from there, I've been building Debian packages officially for many projects in that project family there. And it became official a couple years later with the 2.8.0 ZDoom release. Obviously, there was 2.8.1, and then the project terminated. And then I was building ZDoom Debian packages officially until that project terminated. The new ZDoom team wants to distance themselves from hand compiled stuff and go to CI only. And obviously they have their app image now. So whether there'll ever be an official dev package is left to be determined once I actually get once I find time to get the project into a state where I can build the Debians automatically. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say for the initial part.
I think going down the route of like CI and like app images is totally fine for a Linux build. Like, I can see wanting to have like a proper Debian package, but if you just want something that you know is going to work across everything, you don't have to worry about anything. Like, an app image is probably the best way to go about that. Unless you got some thoughts there. If you have some thoughts there, I'd love to hear
it. Yes, I definitely do have some thoughts. So, and I want to preface this in saying that I think App Image and Flatpak are both great projects. They do, I think, give people a way to sort of hand wave the actual problems that are going on behind the scenes. And I think that is slightly detrimental to kind of understanding the actual problem of Linux binary compatibility. So yeah, one of my criticisms whenever you see an article of, oh, Linux has terrible binary compatibility, is pretty much all of them are glibc broke my binary, but that's because I had a bug.
Right.
And I refused to fix my bug. And I think recently you did a video. There was one blog that basically broke down that no, actually the problem is you can't load like multiple runtimes at the same time, or like the C library or C++. And yeah, so I think what gets lost a lot is that binary compatibility on Linux is a multifaceted problem. So there is that where Linux has basically a global symbol table for each running process. And so what happens is if you require, if you ship like the C++ runtime and your GPU driver is built on C++ but requires a newer C++ runtime, your C++ runtime is now conflicting with the one for the GPU driver. And app image does not actually solve that problem. What I think some people don't realize is there's a large list of libraries that are excluded from being packaged into the app image. And so you're expected to provide those from your system, but your system probably has them installed anyway, so that's why it just looks like it works.
Right.
And Flatpak, on the other hand, solves it through isolation. So they have a way that you can inject drivers that they compiled into your Flatpak, and so they can match the driver that's being run with the one that's on your host system, even though it's not actually the same driver. And the other problem that is, I think, is one of the things where I go, it doesn't have to be this way, is that the traditional distros, through policy, will not include like old ABIs of versions of libraries. And so like new library comes out, obviously the traditional distros typically will not ship that until the next major release. But the next major release comes out, all the binaries are broken because you're relying on the old ABI.
Right.
And the new one's the only one that's provided. But there's no reason why they can't provide the old one other than it would be a security problem because that's not maintained anymore. That is one of the things where I feel like it would be easy to solve if people cared enough.
I feel like the NixOS commenters are going to be scrambling down below about this.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with how Nix works when you run it as your actual operating system, but obviously if you use the Nix as a package manager, it's able to provide those things, and in some ways it does solve that problem. Yeah, it is unfortunate that the main distros don't. And one thing I have found is that Canonical seems to be particularly good about backwards compatibility. I don't know if it's like an official policy, but more often than not, I find that they will do like a rolling situation. So an LTS comes out, it will have any ABI that the previous two LTSs had in its repository. So you can basically expect that your binary will work for 5 years, even through upgrades. It's not always the case that's true, but I have seen many times where they've had that allowance, whereas like Debian seems to do more of a hard cutoff. So if there is an ABI change, things just break. But yeah, I mean, things like that can often be worked around just through managing your dependencies well. There's going to be a group of people in the comments that are going to be like, oh, just static link everything. And well, it doesn't work if you want to use your GPU driver because your GPU driver is dynamically linked. There's certain techniques that you can do. So like with the C++ runtime, you can kind of get two runtimes working by static linking the C++ runtime. That doesn't work for the C runtime because that has the dynamic linking stuff built into it. And then there's also a technique where you provide your whatever minimum version you need, and then you provide a shim library that looks at your system copy and sees that the system copy newer than the one I provide. If so, use that. Otherwise, use the one I provided. Because generally speaking, as long as you use whatever is the newest of the two, things generally work. And
yeah, this is. You mentioned Ubuntu there, and like with something like Ubuntu, you can very easily solve that problem when you're dealing with something that rolls more, and a lot of distros that people tend to rely on nowadays are, even if not explicitly rolling, they are some like partially rolling system. Like obviously Arch is everything's rolling, free for all, go for it. But even something like Fedora, which does have these point releases, still does roll through some of the updates and trying to provide these set points that you know things are going to work on basically is just not part of the distribution model at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really think rolling versus not rolling changes anything there. It's just a matter of policy. What they probably should do is have like a second repo that you can opt into that's just like legacy compatibility.
Right.
And so
Right.
whenever a library goes end of life, you put that package out to this other repository, build it as long as it still compiles. Yeah, if people don't care about that, oh, there might be a security vulnerability there, they can still pull in these libraries. And that would go a long way in removing the feel that Linux just breaks binaries all the time. Because, yeah, I mean, I also see people like, yeah, you can't run the Loki binaries anymore, but you'd be surprised how many of them run if you just preload the standard C++ library with LD preload, and then they just fire right up, even on the latest.
I think so a lot of the time these are available, but they're usually like relegated to third-party repos. So it's just it's something you can do. It's something that somebody cares about. Like there's users who are providing these older compatibility, but it's just not something that's core to the distro. I think a lot of problems with Linux distros ultimately comes down to like developers and funding. So many problems pretty much just come down to that. It's like, do we really care that much about legacy support that we're willing to sacrifice something else? And for a lot of people, the legacy support is less valuable than what it would be trading for.
At least up until now. Now that there's a lot more interest in Linux, and I think just generally more third-party packages. Obviously, at the same time, we're also moving towards immutable distros. So, is it going to really matter in the long term if we're in immutable and we have to do basically the app image Flatpak thing anyways? Probably not. But
I don't know about that. Like I see there is a place for these. I don't know if they're ever going to become like the primary distros that people rely on. Maybe things change, but we have so much legacy documentation, legacy support built around these traditional systems that unless they can really provide some major value for the regular user, and maybe things change as more mainstream users take advantage of Linux, but I don't see a major shift that's going to happen with like the users that are currently there.
Personally, I think that there probably will end up being a shift. Maybe not to precisely the immutable model that we know today, but like Mac OS currently is essentially an immutable operating system, but it doesn't feel like one. And I think we'll probably find some way to move into that general direction.
Actually, that's fair. I think that's really fair. It's the issue is it really feels like a different thing.
I'm certainly not going to say it's going to happen in the next 5 years. Probably it's going to be a long ways out.
Right.
Probably a lot of tooling that needs to be built around it. But I feel like even from the enterprise space, a lot of the issues that people have is just like managing drift. And so like Red Hat has their Red Hat image mode now, which is their immutable version of RHEL. And so I suspect at some point they're going to try to push enterprise over to that. And I assume that's probably where most of the funding for traditional distros these days comes from.
I think one of the issues that do exist with immutable systems that haven't really been fully addressed, because we're getting to the point where user-based software it's getting better, right? Like Flatpak is a very popular format now. A lot of things are available in that. In a lot of cases, a lot of distros do provide just Nix as a fallback, as if you really need something. But the problem that is there right now is dealing with the kernel side, dealing with those low-level changes, because if you don't have, say for example, you need NVIDIA drivers, right? You need to have a separate version just for NVIDIA. And if you want to add in any additional kernel modules, you're basically at a point where you're going and effectively building your own distro at that point. You gotta actually make your own kernel for that. That's one of those problems where I'm sure there's some discussion being had on how to address it with immutable systems. And this is not something that's going to affect most people. But for the power users, right, I do think that there's that still being kind of a mess, and you kind of having to get into the weeds of actually building your own images then do make things more annoying than they need to be.
Yeah, like I said, there's certainly more tooling that needs to be built around those, and yeah, it's not really my area of expertise.
Fair.
Yeah, going back to like the funding of distros and being why they don't really handle the backward compatibility, I would say my personal really hot take for Linux is that distros should not be providing every single package under the sun. So if we got rid of all of the stuff in like the Ubuntu Universe repository and focused all that effort onto legacy compatibility.
Yeah, I've brought this up to a number of... See, when I talk to application developers, they agree with me. When I talk to distro developers, they will give me a 10-minute discussion on why their distro is providing so much value by packaging every single possible thing.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely some merit there, because if you're a distro maintainer, you're going to have more knowledge on how to package applications. But I think what makes more sense there is to work cross distro on some sort of consistent packaging, put more effort, have that effort that's going into Fedora packaging applications and Ubuntu and Debian and all of these different distros to work more on putting things in a shared repo, like a Flatpak, like app images, these other things which are cross-platform.
Honestly, I don't know how much getting a common package format really matters, because we can build tooling that builds multiple packages from the same binary. Like at work, I distribute remote management software that includes support for Linux, and so we have a single build that's built with RHEL 7 because we support everything until the extended support period ends, and so we build it on RHEL 7. I do some magic to or certain libraries that are different between the distros that we support, and basically load them at runtime instead of hard linking to all of them. And so it's one binary. We package it as a dub. We package it in RPM. We try to follow the packaging guidelines for the respective distro, so it feels native on both sides, but it's the same build. And so I don't really think that's a huge hurdle, that there's many different package formats.
I don't think it's necessarily package formats. I think it's because you can resolve that really with CI pipelines. I think the main concern is this duplicated effort of for example, is there any reason why? Is there going to be any difference with the packaging of, I don't know, grep across Ubuntu and Fedora and Debian and Arch? A lot of this stuff, you're basically doing the same thing. The only difference is the resulting package format it is at the end. The actual project in most cases is going to be packaged in pretty much the same way.
Yeah, I guess until you get into the debate about the core utils and versus GNU utils.
Sure, okay, yeah.
Which, by the way, I use the Ubuntu non-LTS, and so I'm currently running the Rust core utils, and I had zero issues except for Git subtree broke,
Oh.
and yeah, that was one of those where the bug was already filed and already fixed, and
They
yeah,
hadn't shipped a new version yet.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was kind of crazy that people freaked out about the Rust core utils thing. It's like, do you actually think... Well, firstly, the non-LTS versions are the versions which do tend to break more because it's not the LTS and you can get away with things breaking. But also, like, did people legitimately think they were just going to ship something which didn't work?
Right.
Yeah, like, obviously it's not one-for-one compatible, but a lot of the issues that are there, besides obviously, you know, there are bugs like the one you saw, but most of the issues are going to be the harder to solve issues, the less common issues. Most of the low-hanging fruit was dealt with like years ago at this point.
Yeah. 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 My personal take on like the LTS versus non-LTS is like when you get new hardware, you probably should be on the non-LTS just because it has the latest kernel and whatnot. Although Ubuntu does have their hardware enablement stuff, but it's kind of delayed. So whether that works or not is kind of hit and miss. And then yeah, once you get to an LTS release, if you're not like a power user, probably stay on that. If you are a power user, you probably want the latest software every 6 months anyways. So that's usually where I'm at. My servers run LTS, my desktop runs non-LTS. So.
And there's me. I just run Arch because it's funny. I want my software up to date within 3 hours.
I tried to use Arch Linux one time, but I used it for exactly the wrong purpose. So I was building a car computer for my brother, and the problem is that didn't have an internet connection. So when it came time to update the software, everything just broke because it was too far out of date.
Okay. Yeah, maybe Arch is not the choice for that. No.
Yeah, so I learned that pretty quickly, but yeah, I mean, overall, I'm pretty happy with the 6 month cadence on getting major software drops, and anything else is like, yeah, I mean, I can install the latest thing manually, so that doesn't really matter, and not trying to rice out my desktop. So,
is there any reason you're on that side rather than using something like Fedora, or is it just more of you've been here for so long you don't care?
Well, it is partially momentum, and also I generally like Ubuntu's policies better than the Fedora Red Hat side. I haven't experienced packaging for both. The way I would sort of describe it is Red Hat solves the problems that Red Hat has, and Debian spends a lot more time trying to figure out how things will actually mesh together, and so things usually just work more. At least as a packager.
I think another way to describe Red Hat is Red Hat solves what Red Hat customers have a problem with.
Yeah, so there's certain things missing, like trying to think of the exact example. Like on app for app, you can specify like they depend on package A or package B, whereas with RHEL, that was a relatively recent addition. So at work, I have a problem where I can run with either OpenSSL or GNU TLS, and I prefer GNU TLS because it's more ABI stable. And but out of the box, RHEL 7, I think, doesn't ship a new enough version of GNU TLS for the features that I need. So I have to depend on OpenSSL and GNU TLS. But if you're on RHEL 7, that GNU TLS install never actually gets used. It just has to come along with the ride, because in order for it to work on the newer versions of RHEL, I need to specify that dependency. Whereas with the Debian side, I can just say, you need one of these two. And since the since the newer version will have GNU TLS installed by default, it doesn't install OpenSSL because the dependency is already satisfied. So that's one example where it's like, yeah, Debian just like solves the problem completely, whereas Red Hat is like, I didn't have this problem yet, so why would I have solved it?
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. That's actually kind of crazy. That is a relatively new addition. I would have thought that would be there for a long, long time.
Yeah. I don't remember if it was RHEL 8 or RHEL 9 that adds it, but it's one of those two.
Okay, sure. When was RHEL 8? That was release date. That was 2019. That's great because I know Arch had it like way before then.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty. I
Pretty
would guess
normal
it's a fairly
feature.
standard.
Yeah.
But if you're coming from the world of we build all the packages, then why would you have an either or dependency? RHEL in particular, not so much Fedora, because I think Fedora is a little bit because it's community based, it gives a lot more options. But RHEL kind of does we have the one thing, and
That's
you
fair.
will use the one thing. So it's not really a problem they ever had, I assume.
Yeah, actually, no, that does make sense. Like, if you're providing a product rather than like a framework to build something, like that makes sense. I could see that. I think it's dumb, but I can see that.
But yeah, man, I mean, there's certainly some things that I like about RHEL as a developer of binary packages. They have their dev tool set stuff now, which is a really interesting patch over GCC where they separate out the new parts of the C++ runtime and allow you to statically link just those parts. So you're still depending on the system copy for the base set of symbols, whereas the new stuff is baked into your binary, so you get better compatibility.
Okay.
Backwards and forward. So, like, yeah, if you're looking to build binaries that run everywhere, I would definitely recommend using a RHEL build container. And yeah, you get the like nearly the latest compiler and everything. So.
Okay.
They kind of started that on RHEL 7, but it was more RHEL 8 and later that introduced that.
Yeah, I've always been pretty much on the user side. I've never really dug super deep into like packaging. So my concerns when I look for a distro are usually like very, very user-facing concerns. And that's how I ended up on Arch, because for me, having the latest drivers and latest software is a fair trade for a little bit of instability here and there.
Yeah, my counter to that is getting like the latest drivers on something like Ubuntu is really easy. There's someone provides a PPA that's just the drivers, and so if you want to roll just that, it's pretty easy to do.
That's fair. That's fair.
And then in terms of like the random applications, at least since Ubuntu has done things like shipping the latest version of Firefox, regardless of their policies. For the most part, it's like, yeah, the software that's
well,
in
that's
there
because
that
they
I
ship
don't
it as a
necessarily care
snap.
about updating.
There is that.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, like the base software is stuff that I don't really care if I'm not running the latest and greatest version at any particular given period. And the stuff that I do care is easy enough to update. So that's kind of where I fall on that. I'd rather have to deal with any potential incompatibility every 6 months and not have to worry about it for a while. And then it allows me to run basically the same thing on my servers, which if I mentioned I run LTS, so only have to deal with that every 2 years.
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. That if you want your like sort of maintenance to be consistent across everything you do, that does make sense. I wouldn't want to run an Arch server. It's a stupid idea.
And yeah, my first job out of college was maintaining basically a respin of CentOS at the time. And so I got really deep into the nitty gritty of managing system D and whatnot. So like I have my home router because I got 10 gig internet in this town, but before there were like any home grade 10 gig routers on the market. So I had
Anyone
the
who's
white
been
box
looking
something.
at the video would not believe that there's anything 10 gig about this.
And
It could just be my side today. I don't know.
not sure why you would. But,
Discord being Discord.
Well, I also kind of intentionally have the background dark, but
Who knows?
And anyways, so yeah, I white boxed the router and it's running Ubuntu, and I was able to use the knowledge that I gained there to get things down to where there's like 15 processes. I know exactly what every single one of them is doing, and it's configured in such a way that I can do the distribution upgrade every 2 years, and it stands up just fine and doesn't have any conflicts because I'm not like fiddling around with deep system files and messing with the packages. It's just stuff in Etsy.
Okay, that's fair. We kind of covered like most of what I wanted to talk about already. I don't think there's anything like really, unless there's like something that you wanted to really touch on. I think like we kind of wrap up there.
At my notes to see if there was any particular thing.
Yeah, if you want to jump back to something, we can definitely do that if there's something we missed.
Yeah, in terms of binary compatibility, I did mention the global symbol table thing. I guess the one thing I missed on that was mentioning that there is a problem with fixing that, and that in order to fix it, you would probably break binary compatibility. And even though there is the mantra that like Linux has no binary compatibility, there's enough people that care that breaking it is pretty much off the table. And yeah, like the one difference between like Linux and Windows, like on Windows, when you're passing memory between a DLL file and the executable, you need to pass the memory back to free it. Whereas on Linux, you can just sort of like do whatever because everything's in the same group. There was a project called Web Capsule that was supposed to like solve loading the GPU drivers into a separate namespace, and that was abandoned or turned into app image. I'm not entirely sure what the relationship between those are.
Okay.
And, yeah, so ultimately, my understanding is it didn't really work out because like the GPU drivers would depend on X11 at the time, and so then you would end up with memory being passed between the various instances of X11 libraries, and that would cause issues. And yeah, so I imagine one of the things where it mostly worked, but not really a perfect solution. And like the only way to fix it is to systemically go through everything and change the way things are programmed, and that's never going to happen unless there's actually initiative put forth. And as long as people continue to believe that Linux has no binary compatibility, there's never going to be any effort in that direction.
Right. Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, most of my notes I think were just like general technical things, but probably a little bit beyond what you were hoping to scope this kind of a conversation to. So
no, if there's something there that you wanted to touch on,
I feel like it would be a little too in the weeds. But yeah, maybe when I'm watching this back, I'll be like, oh man, I really should have.
Yeah, it's yeah, totally fine. If you don't want to get into it, it's all good. Yeah, nothing else?
think that pretty much covers it. We didn't really talk too much about the ZDoom split.
Oh
I
yeah,
think that's
sorry, we didn't
probably
know. We can get in. Yeah, so we can definitely talk some of that. What's going on with that? Like, is the project healthy now? Like, what's actually?
yeah. Yeah, so one of the counterintuitive things is I think the split had actually an indication that the project was in a super healthy state. So I had mentioned that in about 2016 we were about 6 official developers. And then you mentioned there was that drama that went on about the Lilith mod. Now, I think that drama is one of those where nobody really knew the whole truth
Right.
going
Okay.
in. So, as an outsider, you're going to see like, oh, he disappeared, and he probably just rage quit, like because he has had Graf has done that in the past, and I think it was 2010. He did a rage quit and actually deleted the entire GZDoom website. And fortunately, we had backup, so we were able to recover all that, and then he came back to the project. So yeah, there was definitely some concern, even internally, that something similar was going on, where he just decided to quit. But it actually turned out that he just basically went on a small vacation, and a lot of people find that statement kind of weird because it's like, wouldn't he, as a project leader, tell everybody else that, oh, I'm going on vacation? But if we refer back to the part where I was like, oh, yeah, there really wasn't a whole lot of coordination going on, like, why would you tell when you've never had to mention this before? Yeah, so.
Yeah, and then considering that, like, like you were saying that, and then also the fact that he seemed like the kind of person who kind of just did stuff and didn't really want to tell people what was going, even with like development of the project. So if it's something in his own life, I could see him be even like less interested to tell anyone.
Yeah. So, like, yeah, there's a kernel of truth that went on around that. I mean, he definitely was salty about that, but I think everybody on the ZDoom team was a little bit salty about that particular pick, just from a general standpoint of, like I mentioned, ZDoom tries to maintain mod backward compatibility, and while there's a certain faction of people that kind of refuse to believe that for some reason. And so when you have this mod that's like delivery exploiting bugs, it's like, oh, this sort of kind of goes against the notion that, like, yeah, you should be able to take a mod from any previous version of ZDoom and run it on the latest one. And yeah, so me personally, I was a little disappointed in that pick, just from like the so yeah, the community does that award ceremony every year on Doom's birthday, which is December 10th, and they pick the like top 10 mods of the year. And Wolf is a well-liked mod, so I mean, in that sense, I can see why it was picked. But on another hand, I kind of feel like it was a bad pick, just from a if somebody's new to the community, they're going to come in and go like, what's the top mods that I should try out? And well, here's the list. And now you got this one that only runs on this one specific engine. Is kind of unfortunate in my view. But that's neither here nor there. I mean, pretty much every year there's a little, I mean, like any award ceremony where you have to pick the best of some, there's always going to be someone that's like,
Right,
oh, I
right,
would have
right.
picked something else. So, I mean, yeah, Graph was a bit more animated and probably should have been, but I don't really necessarily see him being salty about it necessarily unusual in any sense. But yeah, the fact that he did disappear right after that, when people were egging him on and all that, yeah. so like I said, we did sort of run through the scenario, like what if he doesn't come back, and so like I said, there was six of us. If he left, that would leave down five. One of them was myself, and at that point, I was pretty much shifting focus to ECWolf, and didn't have as much time as I used to. So, I mean, I could have taken over the project, I suppose, but it probably wouldn't have been ideal. The other main developer, DP Judas, I don't remember his real name off the top of my head, probably would have been the best pick. The problem was, I believe, and I'm sorry if I got my memory wrong, but I believe he said that he wasn't interested. So that kind of rules that out. And then the remaining three members were two of them focused on like specific areas of the engine, and is that all of them?
Oh, you good?
Just trying to think. Yeah.
Yeah.
The remaining two members revised that. One of them focused specifically on the Mac OS port, and then the other one was a generalist. However, she has had issues with being in leadership positions in the past, so I think anybody in the community would would understand what I'm saying when I'm like, yeah, probably not the ideal outcome. So it is one of those where it's like people say that, like, oh, this split should have happened earlier, but it was one of those things where it's really only within the last couple of years that the project has got strong enough where there were people that were covering enough of the code base, had enough time, and yeah, just a general sense of where to take the project, that I don't think it really could have happened too much earlier, like maybe a couple years at best. And that's when Graph was pretty much absent from the project anyways, and they were leading it. So in that sense, it's pretty much a clean handover. So far, I have not seen Graph surface since the split. And the project has been dormant since then. He hasn't made any official announcement that it's dead, but I imagine it's going to be again like the Skulltag and Zandronum situation, where it was basically a clean turnover. We just have to use a different name because, yeah, the one person who essentially owns the name said that they want to keep it.
Right. So it's effectively like whilst Graph was gone, the project was being built up, and they were effectively running it anyway. So I guess when something came along, whoever's involved in running it kind of was just like, this is as good a time to do so as any. Like I'm sure, if you've talked about a number of issues here, I'm sure other people who've worked with them probably had issues, and it was kind of like, we wanted to do so at some point, but we just couldn't. And now is basically, we have the ability to do so. So let's go and do it.
It's more of a straw that broke the camel's back situation. As I was saying, on the public perception versus internally, nobody internally like hates Graph.
Sure.
He's a very talented programmer. Like I said, the fact that the project has been able to grow with as many contributors as it has means that obviously he's very open. It just, there's certain behaviors that over time just add up as being kind of grating. And yeah, so that one got to the point where the project sort of moved in one direction, and then Graph was still treating it as if it was going down the direction that he knows.
Kind of like this big team built up around it, but he was still treating it like his own personal project.
Yeah, and yeah, at that point, it's like yeah, either the reader can recognize like Randy did and go like, yeah, obviously this is no longer my project, and move on, or you can tell them to get a new name and fork the project, which is what he ultimately chose.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, on one hand, it's like easy to look at the drama and go, oh man, this project looks unhealthy. But it's like, yeah, the only reason it could happen is because the project is healthier than it's ever been.
Right, right. Okay. I don't know if you
Yeah.
I don't know if you pay any attention to like the Minecraft community, but there was a similar sort of split like a few years back when what was it? What did it fork off of? When the Prism launcher stuff happened. Wait, what was the project it forked off of? Sorry, I'm forgetting the name now. Was it Multi MC or is it they've renamed since then? Either way, there was a situation, a similar sort of situation where like one person involved was like, okay, I want to go down this route, and then it was a lot. That was a lot more aggressive. Like that person ended up like kicking people out of the project, like banning people from the repo. Um, and ultimately that project is just kind of dead. But the point I'm sort of getting at there is sometimes there's just a split in direction, and it's just best to sort of go and do your own thing rather than trying to force it into this thing that the project leader doesn't want it to be.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, as you mentioned, this isn't like a totally unique. I mean, look at like the OpenOffice.org LibreOffice
Oh,
split.
sure, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
And then GCC had one early in its life that got merged back, and then I think something happened with FFmpeg, I think,
I'm
where
not
they
sure about that
decode
one. Xorg did happen with Xorg spawned off of X3D6.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, this isn't necessarily unusual. It's kind of unfortunate when you have the naming discontinuities,
Mm-hmm.
but it is funny watching some of the commentary around it because it's like, yeah, the announcement. I mean, you have to treat it as a fork because we don't know if the original project is going to continue or not. So it's like, oh, there's going to be two projects, and then it's like people can't grasp the idea that the only thing that changed about the project is the G turned to a U and nothing else.
Right, yeah, like basically I I'm not entirely sure, but I assume most people followed over to ZDoom.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, it was a clean cut over to ZDoom. Like I said, the only question mark is Graph, and he seemingly disappeared at this point. So uh, whether he continues the project or not, I don't know. I kind of suspect that he kind of had being stretched too thin problems before. So if I were to guess, I feel like he's going to see this as his easy out to just fade into the background. There is Raise, which is a Duke Nukem 3D port that did the same thing as ECWolf, where it takes the front end code from ZDoom and integrates that into the build engine. He is at this point, I think that product is kind of on a hiatus just due to lack of anybody having time to maintain it. But when that project picks up again, it'll be interesting to see what comes of that. I know there's at least one other person on that project, so even if Graf decides that he's done for good, I'm sure that project will end up being picked up again.
So even though there's been like a lot of mess over the history of ZDoom, it's kind of it served as a baseline to improve a lot of other ecosystems around it. It was a baseline for what you did with ECWolf. It was something that happened with Duke Nukem, and it's even ZDoom itself has now spawned off into these other projects that are still being well maintained and are keeping these older games alive.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all to say on that. I think we did start talking about the Skulltag Zandronum split and then got on to a tangent and never finished.
Very
So
possible.
do you want to go back to that or?
Yeah, if you want to briefly go back to that, we can do that.
All right, so I think where we left off on that was I mentioned that we got a new development team after the original developer quit.
Mhm.
And then the original developer started coming back for a while, and then he decided to start his own game called Rack, and so he went off and did that for I don't remember how long at this point. I mean, the split was in 2013, so that's what 13 years ago now,
Mhm.
and. So yeah, he was working on his game, came back. I don't remember what he had a problem with, but there was some direction that we were going down that he didn't like. And so yeah, we basically gave him the ultimatum that we would fork unless he just let us continue the way we were going. And yeah, we decided to fork, and then Skulltag shut down pretty much immediately after once he realized that everybody moved with us. So yeah, it was another one of those where it's like, yeah, we made the announcement. We have to act like Skulltag's still alive, even though it really wasn't. And
Mhm.
yeah, in that case, we actually did take the rebranding as an opportunity to sort of refocus the direction of the project. So Skulltag was both a source port that did client server multiplayer, as well as a mod
Mhm.
uh, that basically I would describe it as Quake 3 Arena for Doom. And so uh, what we found was that some of the changes that Carnival made for that mod was conflicting with some of the stuff that was being made for ZDoom. So
Mhm.
there were some subtle incompatibilities between the two projects, and so we decided that with the split, especially since Carnival was like claiming that Skulltag is like his property, um, we would sever that included mod. And well, we still had compatibility for it. You just had to load it manually.
Mhm.
There were a lot of people that were confused, and probably even still to this day, for some reason, don't realize that Zandronum has full compatibility with Skulltag mods. You just have to load the shim in between.
Mhm. Mhm. So the, there's, I'm sure that you could talk even more about like what's been happening throughout the history of these projects. There seems like there's been a lot, like, even if it's not drama, there's just been a lot that's happened to get to where we are.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, I kind of hate dredging up drama, but at the same time, I feel like a lot of the tellings of it end up being one-sided because
Mm.
you just see the public side of it, whereas like, yeah, I mean, internally there's other stuff going on, and usually it's not as bad as sometimes it appears to be.
Mm.
Like I said, when a project forks, it's not necessarily that the project's unhealthy. Oftentimes it's because the project's healthier than ever.
Mm. That's fair. That's fair. Um, well, we're closing in on the 2 hour mark, so I think that's as good a spot to end it as any. As any. I can't speak. Um, so I guess if people want to check out ECWolf and check out the work you do, where's the best place to go?
That would probably be my website, and it's maniacsvault.net. Unfortunately, it's one of those where I picked a name when I was 11,
Mm.
and
And just stuck with it.
yeah, so yeah, and even worse, the origin of the name is my brother's screen name is Maniac, and it was supposed to be a website for hosting his mods, but I never was able to really come up with a name for my website. So after he stopped making stuff, it's like, well, I have this domain, so yeah, sticks with it forever.
Mhm.
So yeah, maniacsvault.net. Obviously, we're talking about ZDoom, and that's at zdoom.org. And Zandronum.com is that project.
It's that it's that project. Great and
Yeah, I often have a weird way of words on that. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Yeah, I don't really do social media. I do have a Twitter account, but I mean, pretty much don't use it.
You don't even have it
So,
linked from the ECWolf website.
yeah. Technically have a YouTube channel, but which is also Blzut3, but yeah, it's mostly just videos that talking about something with a friend, and it's like, oh, YouTube doesn't have a video on this, well, I guess I'll put one up.
7 years
So,
ago, the sound of a cheaper motherboard. Okay.
yeah, yeah, motherboards, like putting memory in it, and it's making this weird creaking sound. This will amuse my friends, so I uploaded that video. But yeah, I have a let's play of the game Hacks, which was a pseudo say semi-license of the Doom engine with one of the developers. Basically, we were doing a playthrough with it, and I was just recording it in the background in case anything interesting happened. And it's like, oh, well, this is interesting enough. Got permission to upload it, and yeah, so that like, yeah, was not really intended to be one, but I figured, hey, upload it anyways.
Also, you can buy Super 3D Noah's Ark.
Yeah, I guess that's a good reminder. Super 3D Noah's Ark. I would prefer people to buy it on itch.io because the funds go to me. For Steam, there's a kind of a revenue sharing thing. I think my website might be slightly out of date on exactly how that revenue sharing works if I specify. But yeah, I need to actually get around to updating it because the publisher reached out to me a couple months ago and is game to get the 1.4 update out for that. So hopefully.
Okay. Yeah. I guess that's pretty much everything then. It has been a pleasure to meet you, pleasure to have you on, and yeah, I have learned about a part of the gaming space that I did not really have much knowledge of, but I'm sure people are going to find interesting. So thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Nothing else you want to mention? No other links?
That's it.
Okay, I'll do my outro and then we'll sign off. Sweet. Okay, my main channel is Brody Robertson. I do Linux videos there 6-ish days a week. Sometimes I stream as well. I've got the gaming channel, Brody on Games. Right now I'm playing through Devil May Cry 5 and also Shenmue. And if you want to find the video version of this, it is on YouTube at Tech Over Tea. We have Spotify video as well. And the audio version is on basically every podcast platform. There is an RSS feed as well. And yeah, you'll find it where you find podcasts. How do you want to sign us off? What do you want to say? I love when this happens. You got nothing?
I got nothing.
You know what? That's a first. We'll take it.